Have you ever asked yourself, what if the greatest pain in your life didn't come from what happened to you, but from the obsession with trying to control everything? You try to control your work, try to control other people, and quietly, you place an invisible pressure on your heart. I have to know exactly who I am. I have to have all the answers. I'm not allowed to be wrong. But do you feel tired? We grow up believing that only when we are certain can we have peace. But the truth is, the tighter we grip, the more insecure we feel. So what if I told you peace doesn't come from knowing everything, but from no longer needing to know today? We begin a different journey, gentler, but also braver. A journey of letting go of the illusion of control and learning how to live freely in the midst of uncertainty. If you're ready, hit like, subscribe, and join me in what may be the most profound conversation of all, the conversation with your own soul. Let me tell you a story. Over 400 years ago, in a world that was falling apart, wars raging, plagues spreading, kings and scholars clashing over who was right, one man did something different. He didn't fight for power. He didn't preach a revolution. He simply sat down and he listened, not to the noise of the world, but to himself. His name was Michel de Montaigne. Not exactly a household name these days, right? But if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure to figure life out, to be strong, certain, in control all the time, Montaigne gets you. He was a philosopher. Yes, but not the kind who throws around big words or complex theories. He was more like a friend whispering, "Hey, I don't have it all figured out either, but maybe that's okay." While the world around him obsessed over being right, he was more interested in being honest. He questioned everything, especially himself. He wrote about fear, confusion, even failure, not to impress, but to understand. That takes guts, because let's be real, in today's world, just like in his, we're taught that having doubts means you're weak, that if you don't have a 5-year plan or can't answer, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Something's wrong with you. We're taught that confidence is certainty. But Montaigne, he flipped that idea on its head. He believed that real confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from being okay with not knowing. Let that sink in for a second. The more tightly we try to grip control, Montaigne might have said, the more peace slips through our fingers. Think about your own life for a moment. How much energy have you spent trying to control things? The future, what others think of you, whether everything turns out exactly the way you imagined, and how often did that actually work out right? Me too. That's why Montaigne matters. Today more than ever, because he didn't try to eliminate uncertainty. He made peace with it, and not in a passive way, but in a way that made him freer, lighter, more alive. You see, our world loves plans, strategies, and certainty. We wear control like armor, but Montaigne stripped that armor off and said, "This is me, messy, confused, human." And in doing so, he unlocked a quiet power, the kind that doesn't shout or conquer, the kind that doesn't need to have all the answers, just the courage to stay present in the question. That's the journey I want to invite you into, because maybe what we're all secretly craving isn't more control, it's more space to breathe, to be real, to not have it all figured out, and still be worthy of peace. So if that speaks to you, if a part of you is tired of pretending to be fine when inside you feel like a storm, If you're curious about what it means to live a lighter, more grounded life, then hit that subscribe button. Not just because it helps the channel grow though, hey, it really does. But because this is more than a video. It's a space, a conversation, a community of people, just like you and me, who are learning to live without needing all the answers. So yeah, subscribe, stick around, and join me on this deeper journey. Because next, we're going to talk about something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. What if the need to control is actually the root of your suffering? Let's find out. Together. Let's get brutally honest for a moment. Most of us grew up believing something that sounds innocent, almost inspiring. If you work hard enough, plan carefully enough, think smart enough, then life will cooperate. Sounds reasonable. Right. But let me ask you this. How often has life actually followed your script? You make the perfect plan. You double-check every detail. You brace yourself for anything. And then, one unexpected phone call. One bad day. One person changing their mind, and boom, the whole thing unravels. It hurts. But here's the deeper truth behind that pain. We don't suffer because of what happens. We suffer because we thought it wasn't supposed to happen that way. Read that again. Michel de Montaigne figured this out centuries ago. He watched people cling to control like it was a lifeline, only to drown in their own expectations. And he saw it clearly. It's not the chaos outside that breaks us. It's our refusal to accept that we never truly had control in the first place. The moment you need things to go a certain way, you become a prisoner of outcomes you can't guarantee. You start living in fear. Fear of failure. Fear of losing someone. Fear that if just one thing goes wrong, the whole world will fall apart. And you start running mental simulations, why 24/7. What if I say this and they think that? What if I try and it doesn't work? What if I don't try and regret it forever? Let me tell you, that's not clarity. That's anxiety dressed up as strategy. Trying to control life is like standing on a beach, yelling at the ocean to stop moving. It doesn't matter how loud you shout. The tide doesn't care. Montaigne knew that real peace begins when you stop fighting that tide. He didn't preach detachment as a way to escape life. He invited us to show up fully, without needing life to behave. That's not weakness. That's strength without tension, love without possession, planning without obsession. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever held on so tightly to someone that your fear of losing them actually pushed them away? Or maybe you tried so hard to control your future, career, money, image, that you forgot to enjoy the life you already had. If you nodded, even slightly, then you already understand what Montaigne was trying to say. The tighter you hold, the more you lose. Not because life is cruel, but because life isn't built to be gripped. It's built to be experienced, to be felt, to be danced with. And that dance doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. So here's the radical idea. Maybe peace isn't waiting for you at the end of your perfect plan. Maybe it begins the moment you stop demanding that plan to save you. That shift from control to trust, from fear to flow, isn't easy, but it's worth everything. Because once you let go of the illusion of control, you don't lose your power. You finally get access to a deeper kind of power. The power to stay calm when plans fall apart. The power to keep loving when outcomes are uncertain. The power to breathe deeply, even when nothing makes sense. And that, my friend, is where real freedom begins. So if you've been holding your life too tightly lately, maybe it's time to loosen the grip. If this resonates with you in any way, tap the like button so YouTube knows this message matters. And don't forget to subscribe. Not for me, but for you. Because we're just getting started. And the next chapter, it's going to change how you see surrender forever. Ready? Let's keep walking. Here's something we rarely say out loud. Letting go of control isn't just a mindset. It's a revolution. And it doesn't happen out there in the world. It starts in here. Inside you. Not with fireworks, not with dramatic speeches, but with something much quieter. A pause, a breath, a tiny moment where, for the first time, you stop resisting what is. Because letting go, it's not weakness. It's courage in its most invisible form. You don't need muscles or a perfect plan to do it. You need something far more rare in this world. The bravery to stop pretending you're in control. You see, most of us are taught the opposite from day one. We're told that if you lose control, you lose everything. That life is a game you win by tightening your grip. But here's the twist Montaigne figured out. The more you fight for control, the more fragile you become. Because deep down, you already know the world doesn't obey. Remember that time you had everything planned out, every detail, every backup plan. You dotted every I and crossed every T. And then, out of nowhere, one little thing shifted. And the whole thing collapsed. That heartbreak, that frustration, it didn't just come from what happened. It came from the illusion that you should have been able to stop it. Letting go of that illusion isn't easy. It means facing the truth that we're not in control of outcomes, only how we meet them. But in that surrender, something beautiful begins. You start to notice you're not as breakable as you thought. You're not defined by your plans. You're not held together by certainty. You are steady. Not because life is steady, but because you've learned to stand in the middle of the storm without needing to stop the rain. Letting go is not giving up. It's showing up without the armor. It's finally trusting that whatever happens, you will find your way through. Let me give you a visual. Picture a river. It never tries to shape the rocks. It never yells at the mountains. It doesn't panic when the path changes. It just flows. It bends. It adapts. It trusts its own movement. Now imagine living like that. Not passive, not aimless, but fluid, rooted in something deeper than the need to control. That's the kind of strength Montaigne discovered. He didn't build a philosophy around domination or perfection. He built it around self-awareness, humility, the ability to laugh at himself, to question himself, to let go again and again, and still choose peace. So what does that look like for you? Right now, maybe it's not needing to have the perfect answer in every conversation. Maybe it's allowing someone you love to grow in a direction you didn't expect. Maybe it's forgiving yourself for not knowing what's next. Letting go is never one big moment. It's 1,000 small choices. Each one saying, I don't have to control this. I just have to meet it with presence. And here's the miracle. When you stop gripping so hard, you start to feel lighter. Your mind softens. Your body relaxes. Your soul finally gets a chance to breathe. So if this speaks to something inside you, if you're tired of the constant fight to manage the unmanageable, take a second and hit the like button. It helps more than you know. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Because this isn't just a series. It's a shift, a journey into a more honest way of living. One that doesn't promise perfection, but offers something far more precious, freedom from the inside out. In the next part, we'll explore how letting go isn't just about big life moments. It's about the subtle art of self-observation, how to sit with yourself, truly sit, and discover what's really there. Beneath the noise. You don't want to miss it. This is where things get real. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly sat with yourself? Not to judge, not to fix, but just to notice. No phone, no to-do list, no mental commentary telling you how you should feel, just you, your breath. And whatever truth is quietly living inside you. Sounds simple, right? But the truth is, we rarely do it. We spend so much of our lives trying to manage what's happening outside that we forget to pay attention to what's happening within. And yet, that's exactly where the real transformation begins. Michel de Montaigne understood this long before modern psychology ever named it. He wasn't trying to become a saint. He didn't aim for enlightenment. He simply observed. I study myself more than any other subject. He once wrote, "That is my metaphysics. That is my physics." He saw his mind like a river, constantly shifting, some days calm, some days chaotic. And instead of resisting the change, he learned to watch it. That's the art of self, observation. And no, it's not just meditation. It's deeper than that. It's about learning to listen to yourself without trying to shut yourself up. It's the courage to say, I'm feeling something. And maybe that something deserves my attention. So let me ask again. What's present in you today? Is it anxiety? Is it numbness? Is it a quiet joy you didn't expect? What would happen if, just for 5 minutes, you stopped trying to fix those feelings and just allowed them to exist? It might sound small, but that practice changes everything. Because when you stop hiding from yourself, you stop needing the world to approve of you. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to know all the answers to be grounded. You're allowed to be confused. You're allowed to be tired. You're allowed to be human. And somehow, through that gentle permission, a quiet freedom begins to grow. Montaigne didn't mask his contradictions. He made space for them. He didn't deny his fears. He wrote about them with tenderness, and in doing so, he gave himself room to breathe. Now imagine if you did the same. What if you gave yourself 5 quiet minutes a day to simply ask, what's going on in here? Not to judge, not to change, just to know yourself. Like an old friend. Could you do that tonight? Just 1 moment. Alone with your inner world. If the thought of that stirs something in you, if it makes you nervous and curious, at the same time, then you're exactly where you need to be. Because this is where real freedom begins. Not by controlling the chaos, not by fixing every flaw, but by building a quiet space within you that nothing outside can shake. A space where you're allowed to just be. So if you're still here, if you're listening with your whole heart, then this journey is for you. Tap that like button if this resonates. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now might be the perfect moment. Not because I asked, but because deep down, you know you're ready for more than surface-level motivation. You're ready for a space that helps you come home to yourself. Again and again. In the next part, we'll take this even further. We're going to explore how to accept change not as a threat, but as the most natural, beautiful part of being alive. And trust me, that part may just change the way you see your entire life. So stick around. This journey is just getting started. Let's get honest again. Is there a part of you that's tired, not just physically, but emotionally tired? From trying to hold on to things that keep slipping away? Maybe it's a version of yourself you're afraid to outgrow. Maybe it's a relationship you wish could stay the same. Maybe it's a dream that used to make sense, but now feels like a heavy coat in summer. We don't talk about this enough. But change, it's not just part of life. Change is life. And yet, we resist it like it's the enemy. We tell ourselves, if I can just hold on a little longer, if I can just get back to how things were, if I can just make sure nothing else changes. But the truth, that grip is what's hurting you. Michel de Montaigne saw this clearly. He lived in a world full of chaos, political unrest, disease, uncertainty. But he didn't try to build walls around himself. He didn't fight the current. He lived like a river. Not because it was easy, but because he knew the more you resist change, the more life feels like a fight. So let me ask you something. What are you clinging to right now that no longer fits the person you're becoming? Is it a job, an identity, a version of success that deep down doesn't even inspire you anymore? What if you allowed yourself to loosen the grip, not to give up, but to grow? Because every time life changes, it's not trying to punish you. It's trying to rebirth you. But that rebirth only happens when you stop treating change like a threat and start seeing it as a teacher. Think about it. Haven't some of your most beautiful moments come after a change you didn't want? A heartbreak that led to healing, a career detour that led to purpose, a loss that made you finally start paying attention. And yet, we still try to script everything. But Montaigne reminded us there is no script, and that's not a tragedy. That's the invitation. Because when you embrace change, you become less like a brittle branch in a storm, and more like grass, flexible, resilient, able to bend and rise again. So what if today you chose to bend, not break, not give up, just soften toward life as it actually is? Could you do that, even just for today? Pause the resistance. Breathe into what's unfolding, because that is strength. And if you're still here, listening, reflecting, I want to say this to you directly. You are already doing the brave work. You are already walking the path most people avoid. Not because it's easy, but because your soul is ready for something deeper. So if this message speaks to your heart, if you feel the quiet truth of it pulsing inside you, then hit the like button. Let the algorithm know that conversations like this matter. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the moment. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a space for people like you. People who are ready to stop surviving and start living. And trust me, what's coming next might be the most transformative part yet. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to turn these insights into real, daily practices. Small spiritual habits that help you move with life instead of fighting it. So don't miss it, because change doesn't have to break you. It can build the most authentic version of who you were always meant to be. Let's walk there together. So we've talked about letting go, about flowing with change, but here's the next question. How do you live that way? Every day, because let's be real. It's one thing to feel inspired for a moment, and it's another thing to actually live with uncertainty when you wake up to unread emails, unpaid bills, and a heart full of questions no one else can answer. That's where practice comes in. Not perfection. Practice. Michel de Montaigne didn't just write ideas. He lived them. He turned self-awareness into a lifestyle, not by escaping the world, but by choosing a few simple principles that grounded him, even when life got messy. So today, I want to share 5 of those principles with you. Not rules, not doctrines, just quiet truths that can anchor you when everything else feels like it's shifting. And as you listen, Ask yourself, which one of these is calling me right now? The more certain you are, the more you should pause and ask, could I be wrong? Not because you're weak, but because wisdom starts where ego ends. Montaigne believed that certainty is often just fear in disguise. When we cling too hard to truths, we stop growing. So next time you catch yourself thinking, I know how this will turn out, try asking instead, what don't I see yet? That one question can open a doorway to growth you never expected. Montaigne wrote thousands of pages, not for an audience, but for clarity, for healing, for himself. He turned writing into a sacred mirror. So even if you're not a writer, consider this. What if you gave yourself 10 minutes a day to dump your thoughts onto paper? Without judgment, without edits, what might you discover? You don't need to sound smart. You just need to be honest. Plans are helpful, but clinging to them too tightly, that's a recipe for suffering. So Montaigne planned loosely, but lived openly. He allowed room for detours, surprises, even failures, because he knew life doesn't follow our scripts. And that's okay. What if you left space in your day today for something unplanned? A conversation, a pause, a breath? Could that tiny flexibility be the seed of freedom? Yes. Laugh. Montaigne didn't try to be perfect. He openly admitted his flaws, his fears, his mood swings, his indecision. And you know what? He found peace there. He knew that if you can laugh at yourself, you take the power away from shame. So what if you stopped trying to fix every messy part of you and just smiled at it? What if your imperfections weren't barriers to freedom, but bridges? Just 10 minutes, no noise, no input, just you. Montaigne didn't have a smartphone, but he still knew the value of turning down the volume of the world so he could hear the whispers of his own soul. So here's a challenge. Could you give yourself 10 quiet minutes today, not to meditate perfectly, not to solve anything, but just to be? That small act might be the most revolutionary thing you do all week. Now, take a breath. Which principle felt most real to you? Which one felt like an invitation? You don't have to master all of them. Just start with one, because living with uncertainty isn't about having a philosophy. It's about building a rhythm, and the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. The less life feels like something you have to control, and the more it feels like something you get to dance with. So if these principles speak to your heart, if they give you something to carry through your day, tap the like button to let this message ripple further. And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe now's the time. Not because I said so, but because you're ready to turn inspiration into real transformation. In the final part of this journey, we're going to bring everything together. What true inner freedom actually means, and how to live it, day by imperfect spa day. You don't want to miss this. Let's go there, together. If you've made it this far, pause for just a moment. Take a breath. Feel the weight of everything we've walked through together. Let me ask you something. What have you really been searching for on this journey? More answers, more control, a plan that finally makes life feel safe. Or maybe, deep down, beneath all the questions, you've been searching for something quieter, something gentler, something that doesn't need to be chased. Inner freedom. That, my friend, is the real destination. Not a life where everything goes perfectly. Not a future where nothing changes, but a heart that stays calm. Even when the world doesn't. Michel de Montaigne knew this. He didn't seek power, fame, or even certainty. He sought peace with himself. Not a perfect self, but a human self. He learned that real freedom doesn't come from controlling life. It comes from releasing the need to control it. And that's the shift. It's not external, it's internal. Freedom begins the moment you stop needing to predict, or manage every outcome. It begins the moment you trust that whatever comes, you will face it with grace, with breath, and with presence. So let me ask you, what would your life feel like if you didn't need to have all the answers? If you could live without proving, performing, or protecting? If you could simply be, not because life is easy, but because you've made peace with the fact that it's not supposed to be. You will fall, you will rise, you will lose, you will love, but you no longer need to hold everything so tightly, because now you know. Your peace doesn't come from control. It comes from the courage to stay soft in a hard world, to stay open in a life that keeps changing, to stay kind to yourself, even when everything feels uncertain. And that, right there, is the deepest kind of strength. The quiet, steady kind, the kind that no one sees. But that changes everything. So if this journey has spoken to something in you, if it's left even one part of you feeling a little lighter, a little freer, a little more you, then pause and honor that. Hit the like button, not out of habit, but as a small way of saying, yes, this matters, this truth, this softness, this freedom, I want more of it. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Not for the algorithm, but as a declaration to yourself that you're ready to live differently, more slowly, more honestly, more fully. Because this isn't the end. This is the beginning of a new way to walk through your life. So thank you for listening, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Thank you for staying when most people would have clicked away. Thank you for choosing this journey. And don't forget, freedom doesn't arrive all at once. It blooms slowly, in the small choices, the quiet pauses, the way you speak to yourself at the end of a hard day. You're already on the path. Now keep walking. He'll be right here with you. In the next chapter, the next breath, the next moment of courage. Let's live freely from within. Let's take one last breath together. This isn't just the end of a video series. It's a moment to look back at everything you've walked through, everything you've opened your heart to. You didn't just watch this, you journeyed through it. And that matters more than you know. So what have we learned? We've learned that control doesn't give us peace. It gives us anxiety. We've learned that change isn't the enemy. It's the rhythm of life. We've learned that uncertainty isn't something to fear. It's something to move with, to befriend, to breathe alongside. And most of all, we've learned that inner freedom isn't about escaping chaos. It's about standing still within it, with a heart that refuses to close. Michel de Montaigne didn't offer us a map. He offered us a mirror. And in that mirror, we've seen ourselves, our doubts, our fears, our contradictions, but also our resilience, our softness, our readiness to live a life that's honest, A life that doesn't need to be perfect to be beautiful. So here's the final question. It'll leave with you. What will you carry forward from this journey? Will it be the courage to pause when the world says hurry? Will it be the softness to accept change, even when it hurts? Will it be the permission to not have all the answers and still feel whole? Whatever it is, hold it close, because these lessons don't end here. They begin now, in the way you breathe, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you walk through each unpredictable day. And if you ever forget, come back here, rewatch, reread, or simply sit with the silence these words came from. This space will always be here for you. If this journey has touched something deep in you, let it be known. Tap the like button. Leave a comment. Just a word, a feeling, a moment that stayed with you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the time, not as an end, but as a quiet beginning. Because from here on out, you're no longer walking with fear of the unknown. You're walking with it, beside it, as its friend. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for listening. Not just to me, but to yourself. This was never just about Montaigne. It was always about you and your story. It's just beginning.